Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive deep into something really crucial in the world of medicine.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're all about phase 3 clinical trials.
The big leagues.
Exactly. And we've got this fantastic source that breaks down all the intricacies, the why, the how, the what's next.
It's quite a journey from a researcher's perspective.
Totally. And I think our listeners will be fascinated to hear about it.
It's one thing to hear about a new drug or treatment, but how many people actually understand the rigorous process behind it?
Right. I mean, we all want those medical breakthroughs, but those breakthroughs depend on these trials.
100%. So think of it like this. You're curious about how a new medication gets approved, makes it to your doctor's office, right?
Yeah, we see the final product, but
But there's a whole world of research behind it.
a whole drama unfolding. And phase 3 trials, that's like the climax.
Make or break moment.
Exactly. It's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
And get this, they're even getting more sophisticated, more complex. We're talking biomarkers, adaptive designs, things I bet most people have never even heard of.
Oh, yeah. The field is constantly evolving.
So let's unpack it all. First things first, why are phase 3 trials considered the gold standard? What makes them so special?
It boils down to this. They provide the most robust evidence we can get about a drug's efficacy and safety before it's available to the public.
Makes sense.
Years of research culminate in this large-scale evaluation. We're not talking about small groups anymore.
Right. This isn't the early stages.
Not at all. We're
Yeah.
talking potentially thousands of participants. A
Yeah.
longer duration, too.
Wow, that's a massive undertaking. I mean, can you imagine being part of a trial that huge? It's like you're contributing to the future of medicine.
Absolutely. Every participant plays a crucial role.
So, okay, we've got this massive trial, the grand finale. But how do we get there?
Well, it starts long before phase 3, of course.
Right, there are earlier phases.
Think of it as a step-by-step process. Early phases, smaller groups, we're looking at basic safety, figuring out the dosage.
Yeah, like, does it even do anything at all?
Exactly, those initial signs of effectiveness. But if a potential treatment shows promise,
Then things get serious.
then we scale up. More participants, longer trials, leading to that crucial phase 3.
Okay, let's zoom in on phase 3 now. Our source talks about study design, specifically randomized controlled trials.
The heart of it all.
Why are those the method, the gold standard, as they say?
Well, because the whole point is to minimize bias, right? We want reliable results.
Bias-like.
Yeah.
What do you mean exactly?
Imagine if you knew who was getting the real treatment and who wasn't. Could influence how you interpret the results, maybe subconsciously.
Oh, I see.
So randomized controlled trials, that's how we get around that. Participants are randomly assigned to different groups.
So it could be the new treatment
Or a standard treatment, maybe even a placebo, depending on the trial.
and nobody knows who's getting what?
Exactly. Not the participants, not even the researchers sometimes.
It's like a double-blind situation.
Often, yes. And there's a strict protocol, too, a predefined set of rules that everyone follows.
So no cutting corners or making things up as you go along?
Absolutely not. That rigor is crucial for getting data we can trust.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the participants, we've got the groups, we're gathering all this data. What are the researchers actually looking for?
Ultimately, it's all about testing the hypothesis. Did this new treatment actually work? And not just did it work, but did it work significantly better than what we already have?
And that significantly better, that's where the statistics come in, right?
Yes. We're looking for statistically significant benefits. We want to be sure the positive effects we see aren't just due to random chance.
There's not just, oh, a few people felt better, maybe it worked. It's got to be like proof.
Right. We need to be confident that the benefit is real and reliable. And of course, we're also looking at the risks, the side effects.
Yeah, it can't be like, oh, yeah, I cured the headache, but now your hair's falling out.
Exactly. Got to find that balance, maximum benefit, minimum risk.
Speaking of people, our source talks about patient population. How do you choose who gets to be in these trials?
That's a great question, and it's something that's evolving in the field. For a long time, the criteria were pretty strict, maybe too strict.
Too strict meaning.
Well, sometimes it meant that the people in the trials didn't really reflect the diverse population who might actually use the treatment in the real world.
Oh, I see. Like if you only tested it on healthy 20-year-olds.
Exactly. The results might not be as useful for, say, older patients or people with other health conditions.
That's crucial. So things are changing.
They are. There's a real push towards more inclusive criteria.
So the trial participants are actually representative of the people who might benefit from the treatment down the line.
That's the goal. It makes the findings much more relevant to real-world clinical practice.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, it's great to see that research is becoming more representative and more inclusive.
Definitely a positive trend.
All right, now let's get into some of the nitty-gritty details. Our source mentions cost drivers, which I think people might find surprising. Like, what are the biggest expenses in running a phase 3 trial?
Well, it depends on the specific treatment, the therapeutic area we're talking about, but there are some consistent big-ticket items.
Like what?
Clinical procedures are a major expense, unsurprisingly. All those tests, scans, procedures that need to be done, that adds up quickly.
Yeah, I bet. And it's not just about the equipment, right? It's the people, too.
Absolutely. We need a whole team of administrative staff to manage everything. Data collection, scheduling, regulatory compliance. It's a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that job. Sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be, for sure. And then there's site monitoring, which is another huge expense.
Wait, what's site monitoring?
So, these trials often take place at multiple locations, hospitals, clinics. You need people to go to those sites, make sure everything is being done according to the protocol, that the data is being collected properly.
Okay, yeah, essential but expensive.
It is. But it's all about maintaining the integrity of the research.
Totally. You can't cut corners on that.
Mm.
Our source also points out that these trials are getting longer.
That's a definite trend.
Why is that happening? Is it a good thing, a bad thing?
Well, it's complicated. On the one hand, longer trials allow us to gather more data, especially about long-term effects.
Which is important because some side effects might not show up right away.
Exactly. But the downside is that longer trials also present logistical challenges, can be harder to manage. And of course, it means patients have to wait longer for potential new treatments.
Yeah, that's a tough trade-off. More data versus quicker access. Speaking of complicated things, our source mentioned something called biomarker validation. Can you explain what that is in plain English?
Think of it like this. A biomarker is a clue within the body that can help us predict how someone might respond to a treatment.
Okay.
Like, imagine a specific protein that's only present in certain types of cancer cells.
Ah.
If we can identify that protein, that biomarker, we know which patients might benefit most from a treatment that targets that specific protein.
So it's like instead of just giving everyone the same treatment, you can tailor it to their individual biology.
That's exactly it. Personalized medicine, that's the future we're moving towards.
That's so cool. But how does this tie into phase 3 trials?
Well, we need those trials to validate the biomarkers, to prove that they actually do what we think they do.
Makes sense. So as we're personalizing treatments, are there any new challenges that pop up with phase 3 trials?
Oh, definitely. Our source mentions generalizability, for example.
Generalizability.
It's about making sure that the results of a trial can actually be applied to the broader population.
Okay.
Like, if a trial only includes people of a certain age or a certain ethnicity.
The results might not be accurate for everyone else.
Exactly. We need diversity in our trials to ensure that the findings are relevant for everyone who might need the treatment.
Okay, so back to that inclusivity we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Our source also talks about comparative effectiveness. What's that all about?
It's not enough to just show that a new treatment works. We need to know how it compares to existing treatments.
Like, is it actually better?
Exactly. Better in terms of effectiveness, but also in terms of side effects, cost, convenience, all those factors.
So it's about making sure that we're not just replacing one treatment with another that's basically the same.
Right. We want to be sure that the new treatment offers a real advantage for patients.
And that healthcare providers have all the information they need to make the best recommendations.
Exactly. Comparative effectiveness research gives them that evidence.
There's also this concept of outcome measures that the source mentions. What are those, and why do they matter?
Outcome measures are basically the ways we measure whether a treatment is successful.
So, like, did it reduce symptoms? Did it improve quality of life?
Those are good examples, but choosing the right outcome measures is really important. We need to make sure they're relevant to patients, of course.
Yeah, if a treatment technically works but doesn't actually make people feel better, that's not really a success.
Exactly. But the outcome measures also need to be relevant to the healthcare system.
Meaning?
Think about things like cost effectiveness, hospital readmission rates, those kinds of things.
Ah, so it's not just about the individual patient, it's about the bigger picture too.
Right. Those outcome measures can influence whether a treatment gets covered by insurance, for example.
Wow, so many factors to consider.
It's a complex system, for sure. But that's why phase 3 trials are so crucial. They provide the evidence we need to make informed decisions about new treatments.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, the complexity.
Yeah.
What about the future? Where are things headed?
Lots of exciting developments on the horizon.
Tell me more. Our source mentions implementation science. What's that about?
It's a really interesting field that's gaining more attention. Basically, implementation science is about bridging the gap between research and real-world practice.
So, okay, we've proven that this treatment works in a clinical trial, but how do we actually get it to patients?
Exactly. Implementation science looks at the practical challenges of getting a new treatment into the healthcare system.
I can see how that would be super important.
It is. And by thinking about these implementation challenges early on, right from the trial design stage, we can make the transition from research to practice much smoother.
Okay, so it's not just about proving the treatment works, it's about making sure it can actually reach the people who need it.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal.
And then there's adaptive designs, which I think sounds really futuristic.
It kind of is. Adaptive designs are all about making trials more flexible and efficient. Imagine being able to adjust the trial design in real time as data comes in.
Wow, that's amazing. So if you start to see that something's not working, you can change course.
Exactly. It allows us to be more responsive to new information and potentially speed up the whole process.
So instead of just waiting till the end of the trial to analyze everything, you're constantly learning and adapting.
That's the idea. One example of this is seamless phase 23 trials.
Seamless meaning.
Instead of having a distinct phase 2 and then a distinct phase 3, you kind of blend them together using adaptive designs to make the transition more efficient.
That's cool. So it's like research is evolving at the speed of light. We've covered so much today, from the basics of phase 3 trials to all these mind-blowing new developments.
It's a fascinating field, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And it's clear that these trials are essential to the gatekeepers, making sure that the treatments that reach patients are both safe and effective. But with all this innovation, all this complexity, I have to wonder, what new ethical considerations might pop up? Like, how do we ensure that personalized medicine benefits everyone, not just a select few? Something to ponder as research keeps pushing the boundaries. Keep those brains buzzing, folks, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.